Oceans rise, empires fall. We have seen each other through it all. And when push comes to shove, I will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love.
Oath, Chronicles of Empire and Exile is the newest game by Cole Worley and Leader Games. In this box is an epic game about history, the rise and fall of peoples and empires throughout the annals of time. You will write a history, personal and unique to your copy of Oath, based on the actions you took during the game. The game grows and reacts to you every time you play it. Before I continue, I would like to thank Leader Games for providing me with this review copy. And additionally, I'd like to mention I was both a backer for the Kickstarter as well as a playtester for the game. The main objective in Oath varies depending on which one of the 4 potential oaths were chosen to be the goal of the game, as well as which of the 3 roles you assume to play. You might have chosen the Oathkeeper of Supremacy, in which case the goal of this game is to rule the most sites. The Chancellor is the head representative of the Empire, with their capital in the cradle. They begin the game with the Oathkeeper goal already fulfilled, in this case, ruling the most sites, or the Oathkeeper of Supremacy. In order to be victorious at the end of the game, the Chancellor needs to hold on to the goal for anywhere from 5 to 8 rounds. But they also have to prevent anyone from taking the Oathkeeper goal from them, as well as using any other means to win the game. The other players will be exiles, non-state actors wandering the land, amassing wealth, power, and followers in an attempt to overthrow the empire and establish a rule of their own. Exiles, unlike the Chancellor, aren't limited to one victory condition. They could tussle with the Chancellor over the Oathkeeper goal, but they could also search for a vision in order to gain an additional victory condition that only they can fulfill. Visions are like mirror versions of the 4 Oathkeeper goals. Each Oathkeeper goal has a companion seeded into the deck. Only the player who draws and then plays the vision will have access to its victory conditions. This can mean over the course of the game, there can be 4 players with 4 unique goals that they're trying to achieve. And worse yet, if an exile satisfies their vision at the start of their turn, they win immediately, ending the game prematurely. And I know what you're thinking. How does the Chancellor prevent all of these unique goals while holding on to their own and running out the clock? It can seem totally unfair, and honestly, it can be hard to do alone. Which is why the Chancellor can offer exiles citizenship at any point during the game. If an exile agrees to the offer, they can join the Empire and can only win if the Chancellor wins. However, now the citizen has a successor goal, which allows them to overthrow the Chancellor and seize victory for themselves if they manage to achieve it, while ensuring that the Chancellor remains Oathkeeper. And winning the game decides the Chancellor for the next game in this Empire's history. This dynamic between the Empire and the exiles is the heart of Oath. It can feel like an unending tug of war, with the Chancellor at one end of the rope and the exiles at the other. Except the exiles' end splits into separate strands for each player, and they are all pulling in different directions. All of the exiles need to pull the Chancellor over, but each individual exile wants it to be in their direction and over their line. And then the game gets even more complicated if the Chancellor offers citizenship to an exile, because the Chancellor's end of the rope is now split between the Chancellor and the citizen, until the citizen is pulling a little too hard, and the Chancellor pays them off to go be an exile again, and do this back and forth and back and forth and... So we've talked about the high-level stuff, but how do you actually play the game? On your turn, you'll have a certain amount of supply to spend on taking actions, with that amount of supply decreasing as your army grows larger and more unwieldy. You'll take actions like travel, which moves your leader and his merry band around the map, potentially revealing undiscovered sites. Or search, which allows you to draw cards from the world deck or from a region's discard pile. You can add them to your personal court of advisors or play them to sites, attaching them to that location. This might give you a personal, special power for the rest of the game, or give you a little money and let anyone else at that site use the power. Speaking of money, one of my favorite parts of this game is the dual currency economy of secrets and favor. Favor is a closed economy. There are 6 separate banks affiliated with each of the suits of cards, and favor flows from the banks to the players to the cards to other banks as it gets acquired and spent. And if you ever need to take favor from an empty bank, well, that's too bad. You get nothing. This can lead to agonizing moments where the favor is bunched up in one suit that you don't have access to, or where it's spread so thin that you're practically wasting your precious actions when you're earning so little favor. In general, favor is a resource that is quickly earned and quickly spent. There are a few ways to earn it and many ways to spend it. But one of the most evil things about this game is there are even ways to burn favor, taking it out of the economy permanently. This can be absolutely devastating to the game. You can just feel your heart sink as you take that favor and put it back into the box. Secrets are the second type of currency, and they tend to stay with you. Instead of going to a bank or back to the supply when spent, any secrets you use are returned to you at the end of your turn. As an offset to this, secrets are harder to gain, but they are unlimited in supply. This leads to a dichotomy where secrets are the bedrock of your economy, while favor ends up being the petty cash. Not that you can't burn secrets for some really juicy effects, just don't burn your last secret. Seriously, do not burn your last secret. Other important action you'll be doing is campaigning, the most complicated action in the game. Campaigning is like the Swiss Army knife of actions. You'll pit your army against other players in order to do everything from stealing their sites and their relics to stealing them, which burns up some of their resources and sends them to some far-off corner of the map. Like beating up your friend, stuffing them in a cardboard box, and using their money to ship them to Australia. And you'll do all these things with a nerve-wracking roll of the dice. Oath's big selling point is that it is a new take on a legacy game. A chronicle game, if you will. Your decisions and actions in this game will influence the next one. Like echoes of the past resonating into the future. But nothing is ever permanent. You'll cycle cards into and out of the world deck. You'll trade turns at being in the Empire or opposing it. But you can always reset the game to how it was when it first came out of the box. Because there is no pre-scripted adventure, you're never losing progress. And you don't need one consistent group to play every session. In fact, you may find it more enjoyable to play one chronicle with multiple groups. So why would you like this game? Every action you take feels important. I know several games where the actions can feel rote or obvious, but every action in this game has a rippling impact. The chronicle ability of Oath is very unique, producing a constantly changing beginning board state, giving the game a high replayability as it truly is a living game. The production quality of this game is absolutely fantastic, with great meeples, a neoprene playmat, and resin and metal tokens. And there's kingmaking. But this is a good thing in Oath because you can help someone else win and become a citizen in their newly formed empire, giving you turns that still hold meaning. Why wouldn't you like this game? Well, this game has a high complexity, with balancing different economies and keeping track of different effects and options. Because all actions are important and there are so many choices, there tends to be a lot to think about on each player's turn. This can cause players to take long turns, which can lead to a lot of downtime between your turns as well. And there is king-making, which at the end of the day is still someone else winning. There are many great things going on for this game. While it might not be for everyone, if you're a player who enjoys high complexity and player interaction, I would recommend playing Oath. It's engaging and pulls you into this narrative of a world you're building that is unique to your copy.
Because you're my favorite subject, my sweet, submissive subject, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Because you're my favorite subject, my sweet, submissive subject, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.